Hello, and welcome to the Artificial Podcast with your host, Nick Myers.
Artificial
intelligence,
voice recognition,
machine learning,
robotics,
actionable analytics.
It is Nick's goal to help everyone understand how AI and voice technology are reshaping our lives both personally and within organizations. Your glimpse into the growing world of AI and voice first starts now.
Nick Myers.
Nick Myers.
Nick Myers.
Nick Myers.
Welcome to the Artificial Podcast. My name is Nick Myers, and I am here to help break down topics in artificial intelligence and voice first to show everyone how these technologies are going to impact our lives both personally and within organizations. The Artificial Podcast is brought to you by Red Fox AI, helping give brands a voice to the power of AI and voice assistant technology. Hey there, Artificial Podcasters. Welcome back to another episode and another week of the Artificial Podcast. My name is Nick Myers, and this week I am excited to welcome Sarah Andrew Wilson from Matchbox.io, and we're going to be diving into so many interesting things about not only Matchbox.io, but all of the amazing voice apps that Sarah and her team have been able to develop that are some of the most highly rated, some of the most popular voice apps on Alexa, Google Assistant, and Bixby. So I am very grateful to be able to have Sarah on the show, and I'm really excited for some of the things we're going to dive into. But before Sarah and I start talking, let me tell you a bit about Sarah Andrew Wilson. Sarah is the Chief Content Officer at Matchbox.io, the award-winning brand behind some of the most popular voice apps on Amazon Alexa, Google Assistant, and Samsung Bixby. Matchbox.io's suite of voice apps that include Question of the Day, Find My Phone, Kids Quiz, and Guess My Name. As CCO of Matchbox.io, Sarah oversees content strategy, UX design, and communications, creating delightful voice-first experiences for millions of users of all ages in more than 8 countries and multiple world languages. Prior to Matchbox.io, Sarah spent more than 20 years in the music industry working with internationally renowned performing artists and educators. This year, Matchbox.io was honored at the Project Voice Awards in Chattanooga, Tennessee, being named as Voice Developer of the Year, Amazon Alexa Developer of the Year, Gaming Voice Experience of the Year for Question of the Day, and as Gaming Voice Developer of the Year. And if all that wasn't good enough, in January of this year, Amazon named Sarah an Alexa Champion, which is so exciting I can't even. Sarah, welcome to the Artificial Podcast. How are you?
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Fantastic. And I know you're currently in Vietnam right now, so we're using the amazing technologies that we have at our disposal to beam you in from halfway across the world right now, too, which is just mind-blowing when you think about it.
Yeah, high-speed internet is everywhere now, so it's easy to, get stuff done from no matter where you are in the world.
Absolutely, and I know you and I have been going back and forth on Twitter for quite some time now, and of course we finally got to shake hands at Project Voice back in January, and
Yeah.
I know that I approached you after that, and I was like, I think Sarah and I can have a really interesting conversation about some of the great things that you've been up to and just about voice in general since a lot of the voice apps that you've developed at Matchbox over the past couple of years have just exploded and have become, I think, case studies for so many different people because of how well they were designed and just the engagement you've gotten out of them.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, it's been a whirlwind, and I still feel like we're just getting started. I feel like the voice first industry is just getting started, and I've been doing this. Matchbox has been doing this for over 3 years, and but it still feels like the beginning. There's so much to come.
Yes, I agree completely. It's a really exciting time, I think, for everybody in voice now because there's still just so much real estate, so much unstructured space. It's a great time to experiment and really kind of come into your own as a company, as a practitioner, as a professional, if you really want to be. So I agree with you completely. So to kind of kick things off here, I'm really interested, of course, and I always like to do this when I have a guest on, just to kind of get a gauge of how they got into voice or some of the other emerging technologies. How did a career in the music industry lead you to get involved in the voice assistant tech space and ultimately become the CCO of Matchbox?
Yeah. So at my core, I'm a musician. I'm a classical flutist, but I've worked with, I have 2 degrees in flute performance and postgraduate work in education. And I spent, as you said, over 20 years either performing or teaching, all of the above, and then also working with different organizations like an opera organization, a jazz organization, other performing arts organizations, and working with well-known musicians in kind of an education space. So helping high-profile musicians teach kind of the next generation of musicians. So I have all that to say is that I have trained ears that are trained to hear nuances in sound. And I think that has helped me very much in the voice space. So how Matchbox got started, this was back in, I guess, 2017 now. So it's been a little more than 3 years. Is our founder and CEO, Joel Wilson, had his own consulting business in technology and specifically in database marketing. And he was in between clients, as everyone who's ever consulted knows. Sometimes they don't quite overlap. So it was like just a week or 2 weeks between clients. And he bought a Amazon Alexa device, and I'm going to say Alexa so that we don't, get all of the Alexa devices.
Brilliant tactic.
So he bought an Alexa device, and he was just kind of inherently interested, like, what is this thing, and what can I do with it? So he started programming for it, and he was trying to figure out what could he create where it would be something where he would just have to update it every once in a while, something that would be kind of interesting and fun for the user, that would, that they could come back to each day. So he created a few different things, and one of them just happened to be question of the day. He figured, it's asking one question a day. How hard could it be for him to update with one question each day? And so that started taking off. He was doing everything. It was just him, and it was just kind of a nice little, kind of a side project while he was working with some of his clients. But then it started taking off. He started getting more and more users. And then 6 months into it, he knew he needed some help, and especially on the content side. And he knew my background in education, and he asked if I would help create some content for this daily, this fun daily voice app. So I said, sure. And in the nights and kind of weekends, I would create content for this. And then it just really took off. 2 people are better than one. And we were able to get a lot of things done. And we started really adding to question of the day. And it wasn't just one question anymore. You got a bonus question. We collected points and different stats for the users. And then it just kept growing to the point where I had to make a decision of whether I wanted to continue doing this. And if I was, then I would have to do it full time. It was getting too big to just do it kind of, part-time on the side. So I made the decision after, I think it was like 23 years in music to come over full time. And since mid 2018, I've been doing this full time. And right away we got started when I started with Matchbox full time. Right away we started with Kids Quiz, which was kind of the kids version of Question of the Day. A lot of our users had requested more kind of age appropriate kids version for Question of the Day, that they liked playing Question of the Day with their family, but some of the questions were a little too hard, or kids hadn't learned about a certain subject in school yet. So I set about creating Kids Quiz that would make things age appropriate from, whether you're a 5-year-old or an 8-year-old or a 12-year-old. We had different levels that would be appropriate for those ages. And then we just kept adding on more and more apps, and we now have a portfolio of 16 voice apps and 2 flash briefings. And we just keep growing. It's been a fun ride so far. So we're excited to see where things are going, and we're trying to adapt to where the direction of smart speakers and other voice assistants, where all that's going. And we're trying to keep up with that and create new fun experiences, setting people towards the future, I guess.
That's awesome. What a good story. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say you probably don't regret stepping out of the music industry into this whatsoever then.
Oh, I will, like I said at the beginning, I will always be a musician. Like at my
Right.
core, I'm a musician. But the beautiful part is I'm doing, working on voice apps throughout the day, and then that frees me up to be able to go in the evening to,
Right.
different music performances, so I can still support the music
That's great.
industry in that way. Yeah.
Awesome. So, you kind of mentioned how being a musician and having that trained here has really helped you be even more successful designing some of these voice apps and the nature of the work you do at Matchbox. But how do you think just your experiences in general or any others that you can think of having worked in the music industry, how those influenced your success so far? Not even just in Matchbox, but just in the voice space in general.
Say the question again. Sorry.
Or I was going to ask, I know you kind of already alluded to how being a trained musician and having an ear to be able to pick up nuances and audio and different things has really helped you be successful in Matchbox and the
Yeah.
voice apps you design. But is there anything else from your experience that you can think of working in the music industry that's helped
Oh.
influence your success in voice in general,
Oh gosh.
aside from
Yeah.
just Matchbox?
Yeah, lots of different things come to mind. One is just the ability to think creatively, that nothing is black and white in this world, and thinking creatively and how, how can you create a creative experience within a voice app? How will users eventually become your fans? How can you help them through, in my world, through content creation and really becoming an engaged user, and therefore eventually becoming a fan. Also working with creative types like musicians and traveling. I was a part of my background is as a tour manager,
Wow.
and helping different personalities work
Yeah.
together. And as a tour manager, it's like herding cats. And becoming very good at understanding different personality types, and then being able to see how can we all find common ground and get everyone together. And I feel like in working with voice apps and engaging with our users, we have users coming from all walks of life and all different perspectives. And how can we create delightful experiences for all these people who are coming from just different backgrounds, different perspectives in life. So I find that, I guess that also ties back into the creativity. I find that really exciting, really interesting. Yeah. And then thinking more about technical aspects of, when we do a lot of audio testing to hear how our content sounds over a smart speaker, because
Hmm.
we have multiple apps that have brand new content every day. So
Right.
question of the day, riddle of the day, kids quiz, our flash briefings, those are all brand new content every single day. So we do a lot of audio testing where we sit and listen to the content before it's deployed, before it's made public. Um, and so I can use my trained ears in hearing, like, oh, that sentence, that actually sounds weird over a speaker.
Hmm.
So maybe we can either rephrase it, or we can add certain pauses, or we can use prosody rates, or you can change
Yeah.
different aspects of how of how the content sounds, because as we all know, how you type something, how you write something is very different than how we actually speak. So we
Yep.
want whatever comes out of that smart speaker or out of that voice assistant to sound as natural as possible. So
Yeah, with that in mind, I can definitely see how all those experiences you had working in music really helped you just kind of rock it once you stepped into this role, just with the
mm,
creativity aspect and with, of course, like you said, trying to, manage and corral different personalities and how that's translated into this, and then
mhm.
the audio portion of it. So it just seems like then this was just a real natural transition for you, which is awesome to see. So I would definitely say at this point, then you are definitely an entrepreneur, I would say, with what you're
Oh yeah.
trying to build here at Matchbox. So what has it been like building and growing your company to become one of the most recognized voice app design and development companies? And I am saying that because personally, if you're in the voice space and you hear Matchbox, you know of the different voice apps that they've developed. And even if you're
Oh.
just a user, again, question of the day is one of the most popular apps. So Matchbox should be a bit of a familiarity. So what has it been like building your company, I guess, in the fashion that you
Yeah.
guys have gone about doing it?
It's been exciting and terrifying all at the same time.
Two good words to describe it.
I think any entrepreneur can appreciate that. It's really exciting, and especially in the voice space, because it still feels new. I know there's been the voice space goes back actually several decades in
Right.
IVR system, that kind of thing. But this current version of the voice space still feels new. And so that's the exciting part to me, is like, how can we aim towards the future and create really exciting experiences, interesting experiences, educational experiences that hopefully like brighten someone's day in the 2 or 3 minutes that they're interacting with one of our apps. That's exciting. It's terrifying because you always hope you're writing the right wave, if that makes sense. That you have picked up on the right wave, that this is the direction that we're all going in, and you just hope that you're not picking up on the wrong one, that the dead end one, so that's why it's really helpful to have to have a wide variety of apps within your portfolio, so that you can kind of see which one really resonates with users, and which one, like, oh, that was a nice experiment for us, but maybe it's time to send that into the archive.
Right.
So it's also terrifying because it's our own business, and we now have employees, and we want to make sure that everyone's taken care of, everyone's happy, that everyone feels like they're really contributing to something very special. So it's a mix of emotions being an entrepreneur. But I will say, again, I guess that goes also back to having a music background, is that every musician is an entrepreneur, just a natural entrepreneur, where you have to hustle. You just get used to hustling for the next gig. You get done with your one gig and you have to figure out where the next one's coming from. So I think that's lent itself quite well. But I'm having fun.
It seems like it. Absolutely. And I honestly relate to you a lot, of course, now, because I know, of course, before we started recording here, I know we were talking about my new, just jumping into Red Fox AI full time now.
Yes.
And kind of feeling,
congratulations.
Thank you. Kind of feeling a very similar wave of emotions that are up and down at any given moment. But I agree with you that it truly is one of the most exciting things. I'm only in it a week. But I think I was telling you that just the flexibility and the freedom that you get to work on what you really care about is just next level. So I really like the perspective that you're just able to share there, because I feel it. I feel it so much right now. So,
it's an amazing feeling. You just have to also get used to feeling uncomfortable, and eventually you get used to feeling uncomfortable. And that uncomfortability actually, I think, helps. It helps you keep moving and always moving in a forward direction, and never becoming too comfortable or too complacent with things. Like, you always have to keep moving ahead. So
yes. And I would even go as far to say that the uncomfortable feeling is fun. It's kind of a fun feeling, really, when you, at least for me, like when for me, I guess I've always kind of been a risk taker, even though I look back on my younger life and I'm like, maybe not so much. But as I've gotten older, I definitely have turned into that way. So over the last couple of years, even taking some of these risks, like traveling abroad to go speak, and even just, kind of like you did, where you're like, okay, I'm going to go into a completely new industry where it's just emerging. Is this the right wave to ride? Felt the same exact way and still feel the same exact way. So I think the uncomfortable feeling is fun. And that's where the real innovation comes from too, I think.
It is where the real innovation comes from. That's absolutely right. Like, I can't imagine innovators being complacent, because that's not where, if you're complacent or you're just like super comfortable, you're not thinking of how to improve things or how to make something easier, or how, so that's it really does. You have to embrace that feeling of being uncomfortable in order to come up with new ideas. And that's what's so exciting about the voice first space, is that everyone is just trying out different ideas. And is this going to stick? Is this going to stick? And I feel like we're all learning from each other and watching each other and sharing with each other. And that's exciting too.
Yeah, and I think we even talked a bit about that in the meeting we had a couple weeks ago. We're like, hope it kind of stays that way, because everybody is really supportive of one another right now. And that really is what attracted me to it even more so, because prior to even getting started with voice, for me, I pretty much turned into an AI geek and then started reading more on voice. And of course, I had my light bulb moment where I ordered toilet paper through Alexi. I love saying that. I'm
Oh yeah,
I'm going to borrow that from you officially now. I love that because the devices don't
the
go off.
Alexa, yeah.
But the light bulb went off for me, and then I started taking notice of the community on Twitter and some other areas. I'm like, wow, everybody's actually really helpful here. So I
Yeah,
really
yeah.
hope it stays that way, because I think that's why we've seen so many strides made over the past couple of years, because everybody's been willing to help instead of kind of silo. And as we know, siloing
Yeah.
definitely doesn't allow progress to really take place, if you will.
Yeah, you mentioned the Project Voice conference earlier, and that just happened in January, that Bradley Metrock and his whole team put together in Chattanooga, and that was such a wonderful experience, much like the Voice Summit as well, where you have all these people coming together. Everyone's kind of working in the same space on slightly different things. And the community aspect is so friendly and helpful, and to see everyone in person, off Twitter, see everyone in
Right.
person, and to share ideas over a beer, over dinner, or to
Yes.
share ideas over morning coffee, in between sessions. It's that really, if you're able to attend these types of conferences, it really shows you what the community is like, and that it's a friendly community, and let's keep it that way.
Yes, 100% agreed. So, question of the day. I know you talked a bit about this in the beginning of our conversation here, where how Joel kind of, initially came up with the idea and how it evolved a bit after that. But I guess now that it's been a couple years since launching question of the day, and this seems to be, of course, the voice app that you guys place a lot of focus on, what has
Mhm.
it been like watching that evolve since launch, from just what on the front seems like a really basic thing to now that has, I mean, I can only imagine how many users you have. So what has it been like watching that evolve since launch?
Yeah, so it's question of the day is very deceptive, I think, in that from the outside, from an outsider's perspective, in that it seems very simple. You get a
Mm-hmm.
question a day, and it's a trivia question. We try to make it very educational, and hopefully slightly entertaining. But it's trivia. You get one question a day, and then if you answer that correctly, you get a bonus question, and that's it at its very basic premise. But something about that simple premise has really resonated with people. And we are now in 8 different countries around the world, about to
That's
add a couple
awesome.
more. It's 3 different languages. So it's not just in North America, or it's just not in the UK. It's all around the world. There's something about this that really resonates with people. And we now take great responsibility. We feel a responsibility to continue providing a seemingly simple experience that just takes like 2 minutes out of your day, where you learn something new every day from this
Mm-hmm.
experience. And that actually comes to the idea that we've created for almost all of our voice apps, which are, we have like three main goals for all of our users. And the first is to learn something new every day. So whether it's through question of the day or riddle of the day or kids quiz or guess my name or that kind of thing, hopefully you're learning something new. And then the second goal is that you're learning something new, hopefully through high quality content. And then the third is, we want you to come back. So the third goal is to come back tomorrow for more fun, or more, for additional entertaining experiences. And that third prong is really, I think, what any business owner around the world
Yeah.
wants, right? You want your customer to come back. So in everything we do, we really aim to achieve those 3 goals, and it seems to be working so far. So for question of the day, like I said, at its very basic version, it seems simple, but there's a lot, as you mentioned, that goes behind the scenes, that where we're working on it throughout the day, every single day, not just on content, but also on the development side.
Mm-hmm.
And we're really trying to respond to our users who are asking for more out of it. And one example of that is, about a year and a half ago, we launched our Trivia Club, which is a subscription version of Question of the Day. Question of the Day is free, but we also have this
Yeah.
Trivia Club, because we had so many users on our social media accounts that asked for additional questions. They just really liked learning something, every day. So we launched Trivia Club that gives you 3 additional questions. It gives you leaderboards, regional and national leaderboards. So you're competing against people all across your country.
Gamifying,
and then
that's awesome.
Gamifying, exactly. And then we also offer unlimited access to multiplayer game packs. So one of the frequent requests that we received from users was, I like playing by myself, but I would love to play against my family members, or, we're having a party and we want to like dive into more questions. So the game packs allow you to choose a topic, say animals or remembering the 80s or movies. And then we'll give you like 40 to 50 questions specifically on that topic that 4 people can play at the same time, up to 4 people. Anyway, so just a way of enhancing the overall experience. If you want more out of Question of the Day, you can do Trivia Club, or if you just like getting the 1 or 2 questions each day, you can do the free version. And now we're actually working on a project that we are going to launch in the next couple of weeks. We're very excited about it. I can't talk too much about it right now, but it's attached to Question of the Day. And it's, again, we're just listening to all of our users. We're listening to those 1-star reviews that come in, and those very painful 1-star reviews. But we're also listening to our Facebook fans. We have like 15,000 fans on our Facebook page, and they're very vocal, and they tell us what they like, what they don't like. So we've created this new component to Question of the Day that will launch soon that addresses some of those requests. And we think this new component is actually steering towards the future. It's actually showing all the possibilities that voice speakers, smart speakers, and voice assistants, what they can be in the future. So it's interactive audio, but what does that mean? So we think we have one answer to that. That, again, I can't talk about right now, but
sounds super exciting though. I can't wait to hear more.
We're all very excited about it. And but yeah, so that's Question of the Day just continues to evolve, and we learn from, at this point, we have millions and millions of users around the world. So we're learning from those users and then trying to apply what we're learning from that to the rest of our portfolio. So what we kind of experiment with Question of the Day, if it's successful, then we might bring that to Kids Quiz, or we might bring that to Riddle of the Day. And likewise, what might work for Riddle of the Day or House Tracker or, Guess the Animal, what's working there, we might be able to then apply also on to Question of the Day. So
that's incredible. And I'm still kind of hanging on the point you made about giving people a reason to come back. And I think what you guys have done with Question of the Day and Kids Quiz and the trivia extension that you mentioned is you have given people a reason to come back every single day. And that is the core, I think, that more people specifically in voice need to be focusing on, because anybody can develop an Alexa skill. Anybody can develop Google action, but is it developed to the point where it's creating a reason for people to come back every day? And what you guys have done with Question of the Day has truly hit the nail on the head with that. And it's just amazing to see, and even just amazing for me to even sit here and listen to you talk about just how quickly this has exploded. I mean, the 15,000 Facebook page, I mean, that alone, Sarah, that is huge. So, I mean, just incredible.
Thanks. And it's like, I still can't quite believe that all of this is happening, but it's, we're just trying different things. And that's the big thing that I always try to share with people is like, you just have to try all sorts of different things and not be afraid to fail. There's the phrase to, fail and fail often, right? You just have to try different things and not be afraid to walk away. If something's just not working, just shove it aside and move on. And if there's a spark with something new that you're trying, if a few people like really are into it, like there might be something there. And just to, maybe you follow that vein for a while. And that's really what we do on a daily basis. We're just trying different things. Even with Question of the Day or Kids Quiz, we're tweaking them. We're constantly tweaking just to see, will this help retention? Or will this help, get another subscriber? We're just doing lots of lots of tweaking constantly. And it's fascinating to see what works and what doesn't. One example, and hopefully I'm not talking too much here.
No, just keep going by all means.
One example that I've shared with other people that I just find so interesting, and I wish more people were doing this, which was when we launched Trivia Club, we had in-skill messaging that while you're playing question of the day, we then have a message that explains a little bit more about Trivia Club, and would you be interested in trying Trivia Club? You can do a 7-day free trial. Would you be interested?
Kind of like some suggestive selling type stuff.
Yes, it's the upsell message. So we of course worked diligently on what words we would choose, because as you mentioned earlier, you have so much real estate, only so much real estate within a voice experience. And so you want to use that real estate very intentionally, and you want to choose the right words in your messaging, because you only have someone's attention for so long. So we worked really hard on the messaging, and when we launched Trivia Club, we used this messaging, and we got some traction, but it wasn't the traction that we thought we would get. So we're really into A/B testing, or as I like to say, ABCDEF testing.
Yes.
Yeah, you try lots of different things just to see what works. And we wound up changing the upsell message. And in one of the A/B testing, we changed just one word to see, if that would have any impact. And it had a 17% difference between the original
one word
message and then in the A/B testing with this other message. And we had 17% more people at that time go ahead and try the subscription based on that one word. And so I always try to share that example with people, like, just you have to try lots of different things, but also be very intentional in the words that you choose and the phrases that you choose, because it makes a big impact.
Yeah, that's an excellent example. And two, you actively listen to your users, and you read the reviews, and you read the comments that people, I'm sure, leave you on your social media, and you analyze those, and then you take that feedback and you make adjustments to what people want, which is just amazing, because you need to do that, and people see that, and they see, wow, Matchbox is actually listening to us. And then, I'm sure for somebody who recommends that you add something or recommends a change, and they actually see that happen, I mean, my gosh, that's going to give them even more of a reason to come back and then tell other people they know to even use it. So that's really good. I'm just so excited for you, Sarah, because this is how it needs to be done, and you guys are doing it. So
we're trying. I guess the Facebook page and other social media accounts that we have really do serve multiple purposes, right? So one is just a way to further engage our users. We talk about the question from the day before, for question of the day specifically. We talk about the question from the day before. Then people can interact with us on specific questions. Like, I had no idea that drafts had triple tongues. Oh my gosh. But then they also interact with each other. So it's further helping them engage kind of on the periphery of the skill. But then we also receive this feedback that we wouldn't otherwise receive unless it was through a 1-star or 2-star review. So we're able to get feedback. And like our social media has really become kind of a customer service vein for us, where it's really customer service. So if someone encounters a bug, hopefully they're telling us on social media, so we can ask some questions and say, oh my gosh, what device were you using, and what time of day was this, and all that kind of thing. And that's much more useful to us than just reading a depressing 1-star review.
Yes, absolutely. So given the scope and reach and of course the user base of your voice apps at Matchbox, we've been talking a lot about feedback here. So I can only imagine the different pieces of feedback that you've received from your users. But have you received any feedback and specifically as to how your voice apps have impacted them? I know that's something you wanted to touch on, because it sounds like you've gotten some really awesome and positive pieces of feedback. I don't know if you want to dive into that briefly at all here.
Yeah. So, we're all focused on numbers, right? hopefully, if you have a voice app, an Alexa skill, you're going to really focus on analytics, and you're going to look at the numbers and, oh, we have X number of daily active users and our retention rate is this. Then we can all, it's very important to be tracking those numbers. But something that's kind of dawned on me recently is that, there is a human being behind each one of those numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So if you had 100 people using your voice experience yesterday and 101 today, the 101, that additional number is actually a human being that has decided to try your experience. And particularly on our Facebook page, I've learned a lot more about the human beings behind our users. And I hesitate to even use the word user anymore. I like to call them fans. But they're people who are interacting with what we have built, and they're interacting with it on a daily basis. And through our Facebook page, we get to learn a little bit more about a lot of these fans of ours. And one in particular in the past couple of months, I just keep thinking about. There was a gentleman, I won't name him by name, let's just call him Dave. It's a made-up name. So Dave I'll call him a very engaged user on Facebook because if he didn't like a question, he told us that.
Yeah.
If he didn't like the way something was worded, if he didn't understand the point system or the leaderboards, I would hear from Dave every other day, and that's not an exaggeration.
Yeah.
But I knew because he was so engaged, it's because he cared. So there was something special about Dave, even though every interaction I had with him was like something negative. And then I realized, like, at one point a week had gone by and I had not heard from him. And I was like, okay, I hope he's okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know much about him other than he was based in the UK, and that was about it. Didn't hear anything from him. And then a week after that, I received a private message through our Facebook page from his granddaughter. And his granddaughter said that her grandfather, Dave, had passed away.
Oh, no.
Unexpectedly. And this was a very long message, and she explained that over time, her grandfather had become more and more isolated.
Mm-hmm.
He had lost some friends. He lived alone. And the family was trying to figure out ways of getting him more involved and back into the family. And Dave had bought an Alexa device and loved it. He told everyone, about this device, loved it. And when his granddaughter went off to university, he bought her one. And they would play Question of the Day every day.
Oh.
And they created a group chat. And at the end of every day, it was Dave and I guess his son or daughter, who then had the granddaughter, all three of them would have this family group chat every day about Question of the Day. And the family knew that Dave would get crotchety and would get back to us on the Facebook page with some complaints here or there. And the granddaughter said, though, she knew he had a difficult personality, but that the Alexa device and the Question of the Day in particular helped him become less isolated and help engage more with the family.
Wow.
And she sent this, she was very appreciative and thanked us profusely for allowing her to have that. I'm getting a little emotional thinking about this.
Oh, absolutely.
Allowed her to have this connection with her grandfather that she wasn't sure how to have otherwise. And I just think it's beautiful that what voice assistants and smart speakers can do, and what those of us who are developing these experiences, that we can actually impact people's lives in a very positive way.
Yeah.
So I take that with great responsibility. And anything that we build, that we are being invited into people's homes, or if you have it in your car, we're being invited in people's cars or on their phones, into their homes. And what a special relationship that we can build with our fan. But also with that comes great responsibility. You want to make sure that you're just putting good out into the world, that you're putting out positive experiences that people can have. So that's something that we're really thinking about, are the human beings behind those numbers and your analytics and really the impact that you can have, and how you can just make someone's day a little better, you know?
That is some of the best advice that I think anyone has ever given on this podcast. And just
Mm,
because you're looking at the human outcome of this, and it's really
mm,
interesting that you bring that up, because this is something that I've been talking about with a very well-known designer who's also getting more into voice, and him and I have been going back and forth in a couple of months, and he's even openly told me, even though he's not directly involved in the voice space, he's worked in many different areas of technology, but he told me, I think one of the most important things that we can do to make sure that voice evolves appropriately is always focus on the human outcome of what we're doing, specifically with
yes.
this technology. And that is exactly what you guys are doing. I mean, I'm sitting here and you're telling me this story, and I'm even getting kind of like just emotional, because you changed
Mm.
somebody's life, Sarah.
I Tell me about it.
I mean,
I'm still emotional about it. To receive that message. You can only hope that you're helping people have, a brighter day in some way. But that was
right.
that ran deep. It wasn't that one gentleman. It was like the whole family that was concerned about the
Yeah.
grandfather. Oh my goodness. And that the granddaughter just took the time to let us know, oh goodness.
Yeah, that's amazing. I have no other word other than to describe it like that, because just to know that you made that much of an impact in somebody's
Hmm.
life through something that you developed for the purpose of making a positive outcome is just incredible. I'm really happy that you shared that story, and I hope you continue, of course, to get stories like that. And my gosh, maybe if you get enough, you can publish a blog or a book, and I'm sure, like,
Oh yeah.
just the
I
feedback that you're
would
getting
love
from
to do that.
your
Yeah.
experiences. I
Oh
mean,
gosh.
that would
Now, not
be
all of them
incredible.
are heartwarming like that, as as
Right,
any
of course, but
developer can can relate. There's some like hilariously strange feedback that we get, but yeah, that would be really interesting, right? Is to have a thread or a blog or a book that talks about really the human impact
yes,
of
absolutely.
voice assistants and how we're improving people's lives.
Yes, for sure. And so, kind of changing gears a bit now, I know this is something, when I'm about to ask you a question, on something that you and I personally have interacted on Twitter about, but discoverability, in air quotes,
Oh yeah.
is of course a term that we hear all too often in the voice space right now. So what are your thoughts on the, and I'll say, issue of voice app discoverability, and how do you think developers and other voice app development companies can more effectively advertise and promote their voice apps, given that this is a huge topic of conversation right now?
Yeah. So by discoverability, just that phrase, discovery or discoverability is a kind of a passive word.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'm putting my voice experience out there to be discovered, that it's now up to someone else or something
Right.
else to discover, to help my experience be discovered. And I much prefer a more proactive approach to it, which is I have spent, it's blood, sweat, and tears have gone into my voice experience that I have created.
Right.
I really want people to use this. So what am I going to do to make sure people know about this voice experience? I'm not going to be passive about it. It's just not my personality, number one. But number two, it's just not realistic to expect a company like, say, Amazon to promote all 100,000
Right.
of their Alexa skills individually, one by one. So I much rather take the bull by the horns and put together a good marketing plan. And I love it's Susan and Scott Westwater
Yep.
pointed out the awareness aspect. And I know you agree with this too. Instead of saying discoverability or discovery, let's say awareness. How are you
Mm-hmm.
going to help people become aware of your app? So if you're an entrepreneur and you're creating voice experiences like Alexa skills, act like an entrepreneur, act like a business person,
Yes.
act like a business owner. And that means you have to market your wares. You have to make sure that you have a very comprehensive marketing plan that doesn't just mean sending out one tweet and doesn't just mean sending out an email blast every 6 months. It has to be a comprehensive marketing plan to make sure that the right people are learning about your voice experience, that the people who would benefit the most for your particular voice experience will learn about it. So that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good nutshell, because this is something that, like I kind of been saying, and I'm sure you can agree, we've seen a lot of this, and I think it's just, I understand that, yeah, there's definitely things that Amazon could be doing better. There's definitely things that Google could be doing better. But at the end of the day, it's ownership. Like you said, if
Yeah.
you're building something, I mean, there's that old adage that if you build it, they will come. Not always the case. Not
Yeah,
always
right.
the case whatsoever.
Right.
And I mean, if you look at some of the most popular apps that were developed for iPhone or Android, they all had marketing or an awareness campaign. I mean, look at Uber and Lyft. I mean, those are app companies essentially, and they just didn't throw that on the App Store and just leave it there. No, they marketed the heck out of that.
Right. That's
So,
right. You can't be a business owner without a marketing plan.
yes.
And for people who are listening to this that are like, okay, so you're saying it's not just a one tweet and it's just not an email blast. What do you mean? Make sure your team, if you're a business owner or you want to be, make sure your team includes someone who knows what that means. What a marketing plan is, or go talk to someone, pay someone for an hour of their time to learn more about really what that means, because there's a lot of analytics that go into it, and there's a lot of trial and error. There's a lot of very targeted marketing that's required. So yeah. Take the bull by the horns. Make it happen.
Take the bull by the horns. That's a perfect way to put it. And, I think once, nailing down who your audience is and who that target market is makes it 10 times easier as well, because once you know exactly who you're going after, it all just kind of seems to pull together. And I definitely think this is something that a lot of people in the voice space can do not take this with a grain of salt. Actually put together a plan. If you don't know how to market, like you said, Sarah, find somebody and pay them for an hour of their time. It'll be well worth it in the long-term success of whatever you're building and whatever you're developing. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I should add that sometimes we might not know. We might build a voice experience and we actually don't know who the ideal user is. And that's okay. Sometimes you just want to build something as an experiment and you don't know if there is a market for it. That's totally okay. Just pick one. Just pick one and, market it there. And if that's not, getting traction there, then do some more experimentation.
Yep. Well, to your point earlier, A/B testing, constantly A/B testing and making adjustments to see what works.
Yes, absolutely.
So I unfortunately have to, of course, wind down. I have 1,000,001 other questions, of course, I'd like to get your perspective on. But as we kind of wind down here, I always leave or end rather the podcast when I do guest interviews with this one question, because I'm really fascinated by the different answers that people give. But what is one thing that you think someone can do today to begin leveraging voice assistant tech, either personally or within their organization?
Oh gosh, we could talk for another hour on
I know, right?
Oh boy, you could do a whole other podcast on that. Okay, so it's different answers depending on whether you're talking to like a global company or you're talking to an individual. So if it's a global company, the first thing I would say, or it doesn't have to be a global company, but a larger company, would be put voice in as a line item in your marketing budget. It has to be a regular part. If you're doing social media, you need voice. It just has to be part of your overall marketing strategy overall. If you're an individual, I think it's like an individual developer or that kind of thing. It's to find a use case to observe your daily life and the daily life of your friends and family and look around and say, how could voice make their lives easier? So one example is if you're always losing your phone, we have a skill called Find My Phone. So that's a very common use case. If you're always using your phone, you just say, Alexi, find my phone, and we'll ring it for you. So look for things like that. Like how could voice just make things a little easier? So different answers for depending on who you're talking to. But voice is here to stay. Yeah. It's not a novelty. It's not it's here to stay. It's going to be here. So how can you as a company or you as an individual get in on it from the beginning? And now's the time to get in on it.
Absolutely. I think that's excellent advice. I'm glad you kind of took an approach to kind of looking at those two separately, because they kind of should. I mean, how an organization is going to leverage it is different from somebody who just decides to buy an Amazon Echo, how they're going to use that, or if you're an individual developer. I think those are two very different things. So I'm glad you kind of separated those. And I think the perspective that you shared on both of them is absolutely, you got to put that line item in your budget. It's got to become a part of your strategy as an organization, and personally look at what problems can solve by interacting with, your family, friends, any of it. And that's going to help you become more successful. And one thing I'd like to say too is, if you're somebody who may not necessarily be in voice listening to this podcast, start playing with the Alexa skills store. That's one thing that I'm finding a lot of people don't even really realize exists, but there's a lot of different skills there. I mean, that's how you find skills like question of the day and kids quiz and find my phone. All these different voice apps that Matchbox has developed are in that skills store. So mess around with it, play with it, analyze, and have fun with some different things. So I think that's excellent advice you just shared.
Yeah, just that's exactly how we got into voice. That's how our founder and CEO got into voice. Just bought an Alexa device and then said, what can you do? And just started kind of using it and seeing what the capabilities were. So it's fun to experiment and explore with them.
Yes, 100%. Well, Sarah, this has been an incredible discussion. I'm so grateful that you were able to make some time and do an interview with me. Yeah, absolutely. I've been looking forward to this for so long. But if anybody wants to get in touch with you, what are some of the best ways for them to go about doing so?
Oh yeah, so I'm on Twitter, Sarah Andrew Wills, because my whole last name wouldn't fit. Sarah Andrew Wills. And then also on LinkedIn, and there's also Matchbox has a Twitter account, so Matchbox.io on Twitter.
Fantastic. Well, Sarah, thank you so much again, and I'm really excited to stay connected with you, and I'm just excited for the future of you and Matchbox and just voice as a whole. I think it's very exciting times we're in.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. This has been a really fun discussion. And I totally agree. This is the time to get into voice if you're not already. And it's just really exciting to be in this space. So come join.
Yes, 100% agreed. Well, thanks so much, and we'll chat soon.
All right. Thanks, Nick.
Artificial intelligence, voice recognition, machine learning, robotics.
You've been listening to the Artificial Podcast with your host, Nick Myers. To stay up to date with all our latest episodes, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and Google Podcasts. To learn more about how your organization can benefit by unlocking the power of AI and voice, visit www.redfox-ai.com. Until next time.